My name is Clara Callahan. I'm 35 years old, and 3 weeks after my husband deployed, his parents tried to take my son's $250,000 education trust. They did it on a Tuesday morning in February, while I was packing grapes into Miles's blue lunchbox and checking the time difference to where Evan was stationed. By 9:40, my mother-in-law was standing in the office at Oak Bend Academy with withdrawal forms in her hand, telling the registrar I was unstable and my son needed to be moved before more damage was done. My father-in-law stood beside her and nodded like that, made the lie cleaner. When I got there, Miles was sitting in a vinyl chair with his backpack still on, holding that lunchbox against his chest like someone might take it too. Carol looked at me in front of 3 strangers and said, "A widow in waiting can't be trusted with a child's future." Evan wasn't dead. He was deployed. And my son's future was sitting in a trust his great-grandfather had left for him, guarded by documents Carol had never bothered to read. I didn't cry in that school office, even though my hands were shaking so hard I had to press them flat against the counter. I had proof, though I didn't understand yet how sharp one page could become when the right person saw it. 3 days later, Carol and Warren learned that being loud in a family is not the same as having authority in an institution. The part people always ask me about is how I stayed calm. I wish I could say it was courage. It wasn't, not at first. It was training. It was exhaustion. It was the strange quiet that comes over you when someone says something so cruel that your body refuses to waste energy reacting to it. The school office smelled like copier toner and wet coats. There was a bulletin board behind the registrar's desk with paper snowflakes cut by second graders, and one of them had Miles's name written in blue crayon. I remember that because Carol was talking about moving him like he was a chair in a room, and all I could see was his handwriting taped to the wall where he belonged. He looked smaller than 8 that morning. His hair was sticking up on one side because he had slept with his head pressed against my sweatshirt the night before. Evan had called at 2 a.m. our time, and Miles had tried so hard to stay awake that he cried when the call dropped. I had promised him he could tell his dad about the science fair on the next call. I had packed his favorite crackers. I had put a folded note from Evan in the front pocket of his lunchbox, the same note Miles carried everywhere when deployment felt too big. Then Carol took a step toward me and lowered her voice. But not enough. "Clara," she said, "don't make this ugly." That was when I noticed the first signature, Warren's. It was on the witness line of the withdrawal packet, neat and slanted, the same way he signed birthday cards and checks at restaurants. I didn't know yet how much that signature would cost him. I looked at the registrar, whose nameplate said Kira Nassar, and asked, "Has my son been withdrawn?" Kira's eyes moved from me to Carol, then back. "No, Mrs. Callahan, not without proper authorization." Carol gave a little laugh. "We are his grandparents," Kira said. "That is not what I asked for." It was the first decent sentence anyone had said to me that morning. I turned to Miles. "Buddy, go with Miss Nassar for a minute, okay? I'm right here." He did not move. Carol reached for him. "He can come with us." I put my hand on the lunchbox, not on Carol, not on Miles's arm, just on the lunchbox between us. "No," I said. One syllable. Quiet. Final enough that even Warren blinked. Carol smiled like she had already won. "You'll regret embarrassing me in public." I looked at the form again, at Warren's signature, at the box where Carol had written, "Mother emotionally unavailable," and I knew something had shifted. Not in them. In me. Because I had spent years keeping the Callahans comfortable. That morning, for the first time, I let them become uncomfortable all by themselves. Welcome back to, by then I knew, where the quietest person in the room is sometimes the only one who kept the receipts. If you have ever been treated like support staff in your own family, or expected to stay grateful while people reached for what belonged to your child, this story is for you. Settle in, tell me where you're listening from, and subscribe if you believe the truth does not have to shout to be heard. Before Carol Callahan decided I was too fragile to manage my son's future, she had spent almost 9 years letting me manage everything else. That is the part that still sits strangely in my chest. I was qualified enough to keep track of her husband's heart medications after his surgery. Qualified enough to organize Oscar Callahan's hospital discharge when everyone else was too upset to listen to the nurse. Qualified enough to handle Evan's deployment folders, insurance updates, school tuition deadlines, holiday dinners, family group texts, and every condolence note after Oscar died. But the minute a document gave me authority instead of responsibility, Carol decided I was unstable. I grew up being useful, before I knew there was another way to be loved. My mother was not cruel. She was tired. My father was not absent. He was distracted in a way that made the rest of us orbit his moods without naming it. I was the oldest daughter, the one who knew where the spare keys were, which bill had to be paid first, which neighbor could give us a ride if the car wouldn't start, and how to make one box of pasta look like dinner for 4. Adults called me mature. Mostly, that meant they could ask more from me. By the time I met Evan, I was 24 and working as a legal assistant at Bellwether and Crane, an estate planning firm 2 towns over from the base. I knew how to scan documents straight, how to spot a missing notary stamp, how to read a trust certification without getting intimidated by the font. I liked my work because paper did not pretend. A signature was there or it was not. A date matched or it didn't. A clause applied or it didn't. People could lie beautifully, but documents were clumsy liars when you knew where to look. Evan loved that about me. He used to say, "Clara can find the typo in a thunderstorm." The first time he said it in front of his mother, Carol laughed too long. "Oh, good," she said. "Every family needs someone organized." It sounded like a compliment if you wanted it to. I wanted it to. Evan came from Callahan money, not mansion money, but comfortable money. The kind where nobody said the word rich, but everyone had opinions about school districts, tax deductions, and who used the lake house properly. His grandfather, Oscar Callahan, had built a regional equipment business from 2 trucks and a repair yard. By the time I came around, the business had been sold, the money had been invested, and the family lived under the warm shadow of a man whose approval still mattered, even when he was too old to drive at night. Oscar liked me, not in a sentimental way. He was not a soft man. He wore the same brown cardigan for 20 years and kept peppermint candies in the glove compartment of a car he no longer drove. He asked questions that sounded simple until you realized he was measuring the answer. The first time Evan brought me to Sunday dinner, Oscar watched me help Carol find the serving spoons without being asked. Later, when I sat beside him on the porch, he said, "Do they pay you enough at that law office?" I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't smiling. "Probably not," I said. "What do you do there?" I told him I prepared estate binders, tracked signatures, assembled trust funding letters, and made sure clients understood which accounts still needed beneficiary updates. Oscar nodded slowly. "So you read the fine print before anyone else knows there is fine print." That detail stayed with me. Carol never asked what I did again. Warren asked once if being a paralegal was like a secretary with court words. Bryn, Evan's older sister, once told me she could never sit at a desk all day, stapling people's wills. I didn't correct them much. In the beginning, I thought peace was worth more than accuracy. When Evan and I married, Carol made a speech at the rehearsal dinner about welcoming Clara into our traditions. She wore navy silk and pearls and kept one hand on Evan's shoulder, as if he were a chair she had saved. "Military life is hard," she told me afterward in the ladies' room, while she reapplied lipstick in the mirror. "You'll need us." I said, "I'm glad Evan has family close." She capped her lipstick. "Oh, honey, I meant you." That was Carol, a blade wrapped in manners. I learned her rules slowly. Callahan family birthdays happened at Carol's house unless Carol was annoyed, in which case they happened at a restaurant and everyone had to pretend she was being generous. Warren did not disagree with Carol in front of anyone. Bryn could complain for 40 minutes about money and still call herself independent. Evan could push back sometimes, but deployment schedules, field training, and exhaustion made him choose his battles. Carol knew that. She used timing the way other people used keys. When Miles was born, Oscar came to the hospital before Carol did. I remember him standing by the bassinet, both hands wrapped around his cane, staring down at this red-faced baby like he had been handed a map to somewhere he had forgotten existed. "What's his full name?" he asked. "Miles. Oscar Callahan," Evan said. Oscar looked away fast, but not fast enough. Carol arrived 20 minutes later with a balloon arrangement so large the nurse had to ask her to move it away from the monitor. She kissed Evan first, then Miles, then the air beside my cheek. "My first grandson," she said. I was still wearing a hospital bracelet. My hair was stuck to my neck. I had not slept in 36 hours. "Our son," I corrected softly. Carol smiled. Of course, but her eyes stayed on Evan, Oscar noticed. I know he did because 3 months later, he asked me to bring Miles by his house without making a big family thing out of it. His house smelled like old wood, black coffee, and the lemon oil his housekeeper used on the dining table. He sat in his den with a folder beside him and Miles asleep in the carrier at my feet. I made arrangements, Oscar said. For what? For him. I looked down at Miles. Oscar slid the folder toward me. Education trust. Not enough to ruin him. Enough to give him choices. I opened it carefully, the way I opened client binders at work. Trust. Name. Settler. Beneficiary. Funding amount. Trustee. My name. I looked up. Oscar said, "You read before you sign. That matters. Evan should be involved." "Evan is his father," Oscar said. "He'll be involved every day of that boy's life. This is different." I didn't understand everything then. I understood enough to feel the weight of it. "Oscar," I said, "Carol will not like this." "No," he said, "she will not." He handed me a second envelope, sealed with a strip of tape. On the front, in his blocky handwriting, he had written, "Back page." "Keep that with your copy," he said. "What is it?" "You'll know if you ever need it." I almost pushed it back. I almost said I didn't want to be placed in the middle of something I did not understand. But Miles made a little sound in his sleep, and Oscar looked at him like age had finally scared him. So, I took the envelope. I put it in our small fireproof box at home, between Evan's passport copy and our marriage certificate. For years, that was all it was. A sealed envelope, a private oddity, something I remembered only when I filed taxes or renewed passports or searched for Miles's birth certificate. Then Oscar died. By then Miles was 6. Oscar had been declining for a while, but his death still rearranged the family. Carol became sharper. Warren became quieter. Bryn became more dramatic about what was fair. Evan was training more. I was working remotely, which made everyone assume I was available for anything they did not want to do. Carol asked me to help with thank you cards after the funeral, then with insurance forms, then with finding Oscar's account statements, then with changing Warren's medical portal password because he could never remember which email he used. I did it because that was what I did. I made things smoother. I filled the gaps. I gave people fewer reasons to be angry. One evening, about a month after Oscar's funeral, Carol came over with a plastic storage bin of his papers. She placed it on my kitchen table and sighed like a woman carrying an entire civilization. "I can't look at one more statement," she said. "You're good with this nonsense." Miles was doing homework at the counter. Evan was at the base. I had pasta boiling and an estate packet open on my laptop. I said, "I can sort them into piles." Carol sat down without asking and watched me. There were old insurance notices, donation receipts, equipment sale records, bank letters, utility bills, and handwritten notes in Oscar's careful block print. I made piles: keep, shred, scan, unclear. Carol poured herself coffee from my pot and said, "Oscar always made things more complicated than they needed to be." "He seemed careful," I said. "He was suspicious." I did not answer. She tapped one nail on the table. "Did he ever talk to you about Miles's trust?" I kept my face neutral. "When he set it up." "Funny," she said. "He hardly mentioned it to me." I looked at her then. She smiled. "I'm his grandmother." "You're Miles's grandmother." Her smile thinned. That's what I meant, but it wasn't. After she left, I opened the fireproof box and looked at the trust binder again. Not because I expected trouble, because Carol's tone had touched some part of my brain that kept records even when my heart wanted peace. I read the certificate again. Clara May Callahan, sole trustee. Miles, Oscar Callahan, beneficiary. Distributions for education, related support, enrichment, tutoring, college savings, fees, materials, transportation, and any reasonable expense directly benefiting the beneficiary's education. No family pooling, no redistribution, no loans to relatives, no substitutions of trustee without court approval or written incapacity. Then I picked up the sealed envelope, back page. For a long time, I just held it. I almost put it away unopened. Oscar had said I would know if I needed it, and maybe I didn't. Maybe Carol was grieving. Maybe I was being unfair. Then I thought about the way she had said, "I'm his grandmother," like grandmother was a legal title. I opened it. There was one stapled document inside, an addendum, signed by Oscar, witnessed, notarized, copied to Mariposa Trust and Savings. I read it twice, then I read it a third time, slower. I did not tell Evan right away. That sounds strange, maybe even wrong, but Evan was already carrying enough. His grandfather had died. His unit was preparing for deployment. His mother was calling him every other day with small emergencies that somehow always became proof he did not visit enough. I put the addendum back in the envelope, but I did not reseal it. That mattered later. By the time Evan deployed, Carol had settled into a pattern of concern that felt like surveillance. She called every other morning. "Just checking on you girls," she said once. "Girls? You know what I mean. You and Miles. He's not a girl. Oh, don't be sensitive." She stopped by with groceries I had not asked for, and then looked inside my pantry while putting them away. She asked if I was sleeping. She asked if Miles was acting out. She asked whether deployment pay was confusing. She asked if I needed Warren to look over the financial pieces. I said no every time. She heard maybe. Evan left on January 18th. We drove him to the Readiness Center before sunrise. The parking lot was full of idling cars, crying toddlers, duffel bags, paper cups of coffee, and people trying to be brave in ways that made them look almost angry. Miles wore Evan's old watch on the smallest hole. It slid around his wrist anyway. Evan knelt in front of him and said, "You take care of Mom, okay?" I touched his shoulder. "No, you be a kid. I'll take care of us." Evan looked up at me, and for a second his face changed. He knew what I was correcting. He knew I had been the kid who heard that sentence too young. "You're right," he said to Miles. "Mom's got us. You just tell me about school and eat actual vegetables sometimes." Miles smiled, but his mouth shook. Carol stood 10 feet away with sunglasses on, even though it was still dark. Warren had one hand in his coat pocket and one hand on her back. Bryn was not there. She had texted that her twins had a piano thing, though it was 5 in the morning. When the bus finally pulled away, Miles pressed his face into my coat. Carol came up behind us and said, "Well, now we wait." I didn't turn around. Military families know waiting. But that day, I felt something else in her voice. Ownership. For the first week, I let myself be tired. I worked, packed lunches, answered Evan's calls when they came through, and learned the new rhythm of our house. The toothbrush holder had one adult toothbrush instead of 2. Evan's boots stayed by the back door because I could not make myself move them. Miles slept with the hallway light on. Rosa Mendez, our neighbor across the street, started leaving her porch light on too. Rosa was 68, widowed, and so direct that people mistook her kindness for bluntness. Her husband had been Navy. Her son had done 2 deployments before settling in Arizona. She knew the sound a house made after someone left in uniform. On the 3rd night, she knocked with a pot of chicken soup and a bag of rolls. "I made too much," she said. "No, you didn't." "No," she said. "I did not." Then she walked past me and set it on the stove. Rosa never asked dramatic questions. She asked practical ones. Did I have Evan's unit contact number printed somewhere? Did Miles's school know he might be emotional? Did the smoke detector in the hallway still chirp? Did I want her to stand at the bus stop on Thursdays when my staff meeting ran late? Carol asked if I was coping. Rosa asked, which day was trash day? There is a difference. 2 weeks after Evan left, Carol invited herself to Sunday dinner at my house. She said it would be less pressure for me than bringing Miles to hers. Then she arrived with Warren, Bryn's husband, and the twins, which turned my quiet pot roast into a family event. Bryn's twins ran through the living room with Miles's model rocket, and I saw his face pinch. He did not complain. He had learned that Callahan gatherings rewarded the loudest need. During dinner, Carol asked about school tuition. Oak Bend sent the spring statement, she said, passing potatoes. I looked up. It's handled. Through the trust? Yes. Bryn made a small sound. Must be nice. Evan and I did not live extravagantly. We had 1 car payment, a mortgage with a military discount, and a dishwasher that sounded like gravel, but Miles's trust paid his school expenses because Oscar had designed it that way, Carol said. Oscar wanted the children educated. Miles, I said. She blinked. The trust is for Miles. Carol's fork paused above her plate. Of course. Bryn leaned back. I just think Grandpa would have wanted all the kids supported. Warren cleared his throat. Let's not do this. For 1 second, I thought he meant let's not pressure Clara. Then he added, not at dinner. That was Warren's almost decency in miniature. Never stop the wrong thing, just reschedule it. Later, while I was loading the dishwasher, Carol came into the kitchen with 2 wine glasses. You know, she said, military wives learn to wait. That's the job. I shut the dishwasher. Is it? She smiled. Don't bristle. I mean, you're in a hard season. Nobody would blame you for needing support. I have support. Rosa doesn't count. That made me turn. Carol lifted one shoulder. She's a neighbor. We're family. The word family did a lot of work for Carol. It meant obligation when she needed something, forgiveness when she caused harm, silence when she embarrassed someone, and access when a door should have stayed closed. As she left that night, I saw her pause beside the small fireproof box on the shelf under the entry table. I had taken it out earlier to grab Evan's insurance card and forgotten to put it back upstairs. Carol touched the lid with 2 fingers. Important papers? She asked. Mostly boring ones. She laughed. That's your specialty. I smiled because Miles was watching. But after everyone left, I carried the box upstairs and locked it in my closet. The next morning, Bryn texted me by mistake. At least, I assume it was by mistake. The message said, Mom said once Evan is gone, the trust can be shifted before spring tuition. Don't let Clara make it emotional. I stared at it while standing in the cereal aisle at the grocery store. Then the little gray bubbles appeared. They vanished. A minute later, Bryn sent, Sorry, wrong Clara. Voice text. Ignore. There was no other Clara in the family. I took a screenshot. I did not answer. That was the first time I created the folder on my laptop. I named it Miles School Records because that was boring enough to be invisible. In it, I saved the screenshot, a PDF copy of the trust certificate, the deployment power of attorney Evan and I had prepared before he left, and the school's authorized pickup list. Carol and Warren were on it then. So was Rosa, because I had added her the week before. I did not add Oscar's back page. Not yet. I told myself I was being cautious, not afraid. Then Miles came home the following Friday, quieter than usual. He put his backpack by the door and placed the blue lunchbox on the counter without opening it. You didn't eat much, I said. He shrugged. I sat beside him. Bad day? His eyes filled before he spoke. Am I changing schools? Every muscle in my body went still. Who told you that? Grandma. When? She called Grandpa Pike during recess. Mr. Pike was not his grandpa. His teacher was Aaron Pike. Miles called him Mr. Pike. In his upset, the words tangled. I kept my voice even. What did Grandma say? She said maybe I'd go to a school where Callahans belong, because you have too much right now. She said I should be brave and not make you feel bad. I had to look down at my hands. There is a special kind of anger that arrives when someone makes your child responsible for your emotional management. I took a breath. You are not changing schools unless I tell you. Dad and I choose your school, not Grandma. Did I do something? No. Is it because Dad left? No, baby. He nodded, but he did not believe me all the way. That night, after he went to sleep, I emailed his teacher. Mr. Pike responded within 20 minutes. Mrs. Callahan, thank you for letting me know. Miles seemed unsettled today but did well after lunch. I was not aware of any school change. For what it's worth, he belongs here. I'll keep an eye out. For what it's worth, he belongs here. I read that sentence more times than I want to admit. I discussed our NEI. On Monday, I called the school and asked to confirm the authorized withdrawal process. Kira Nasser explained it clearly. Only a parent or legal guardian could withdraw Miles. Emergency contacts could pick up in approved situations, but they could not alter enrollment. Is there a concern? She asked. I hope not, I said. She paused. I'll place a note on the file that any enrollment changes should go directly through you. Thank you. You're welcome, she said. Then, a little softer. We see this sometimes. I wondered what this meant to her. Grandparents, custody fights, people using school offices as stages because children had to stand there and listen. I almost told Evan knife ring that night. His call came through choppy, with a delay that made us talk over each other. He looked exhausted. Miles showed him the cardboard base for his science fair project, and Evan clapped like it was a rocket launch. Then sirens sounded faintly on his end, and he had to go. After the screen went black, I sat in the kitchen with the laptop open and typed a message. Carol is acting strange about the trust. I did not send it. Not because I wanted to protect Carol, because Evan was too far away to do anything except worry, and I still did not have proof that she had done more than talk. I saved the draft. Tuesday morning came cold and gray. I remember the weather because Miles wore the wrong gloves, one blue, one black. I almost made him change, then decided it did not matter. He was humming while he packed his science fair log into his backpack. The blue lunchbox was open on the counter. I put grapes in the small container, then crackers, then a turkey sandwich cut diagonally because he claimed triangles tasted better. The folded note from Evan was already in the front pocket. Miles patted it twice before zipping the lunchbox closed. At 8:15, I dropped him at Oak Bend. At 9:38, my phone rang. Oak Bend Academy. I answered while reviewing a client's trust funding spreadsheet. This is Clara. Mrs. Callahan, this is Kira Nasser from Oak Bend. I'm sorry to interrupt you. My skin went cold before she said anything else. Is Miles okay? He's physically fine, she said, which is the sort of sentence that makes a mother stand up without remembering she stood. Your in-laws are here requesting to withdraw him from school. For a second, my brain refused to process it. I'm sorry. What? Carol and Warren Callahan are here with paperwork. We have Miles in the front office. I have not released him. I grabbed my keys. Kira lowered her voice. Mrs. Callahan, they're claiming you authorized this verbally due to family circumstances. I did not. I suspected as much. That sentence kept me from falling apart. I'm 10 minutes away, I said. Take your time driving. He's safe. I don't remember the drive clearly. I remember a school bus turning too wide. I remember gripping the steering wheel at a red light. I remember calling Rosa. She answered on the second ring. What happened? Carol's at the school trying to withdraw Miles. Rosa did not gasp. She did not ask why. She said, I'm putting on shoes. I'm going there now. I'll meet you. If you need to stay, I'll take him home. I don't know what this is. Yes, you do, Rosa said. You just don't have all the paper yet. When I walked into the school office, Carol was standing at the counter in a camel coat, pearls, and the expression she wore when she wanted service corrected. Warren stood beside her, holding a manila envelope. Miles was in the chair by the nurse's door, backpack on, blue lunchbox in his lap. He saw me and burst into tears silently. His face crumpled, but he didn't make a sound. That broke something in me. Not loudly, not visibly. Carol turned. There you are, she said. We were just trying to spare you a scene. I went to Miles first. I crouched in front of him and touched his knee. You're not in trouble, Grandma said I had to go. No, Carol sighed. Clara, don't confuse him. Kira Nasser stood behind the desk with the withdrawal packet in her hand. Her face was professional, but her eyes were angry. I looked at Carol. What did you file? Temporary educational transfer, she said. It's not dramatic. You tried to withdraw him mid-year. For his stability. Warren looked at the floor. I stood. His stability is not moving schools while his father is deployed. Carol's mouth tightened. A widow in waiting can't be trusted with a child's future. The office went quiet. Even the copier stopped. Kira looked at Carol like she had just seen behind a curtain. I heard my own heartbeat. Evan's face flashed in my mind, grainy on a bad connection, smiling at Miles's science fair cardboard. Alive, tired, serving, not a prop for Carol's fear. I said, do not call me that again. Carol's eyebrows lifted. She was pleased. She thought she had gotten emotion from me. I'm being realistic, she said. No, I said. You're being recorded by 3 adults in a school office. That was not entirely true, at least not in the way she thought, but it made her glance around. Kira placed the papers on the counter. Mrs. Callahan, these are the forms they brought. I looked them over. Carol had filled in a receiving school. Street Anselm Preparatory. Cheaper than Oak Bend, but still private. Religious. Across town, Bryn's twins had applied there after being waitlisted somewhere else. In the reason for withdrawal box, Carol had written, mother emotionally unavailable due to spouse deployment. Grandparents assuming educational oversight. There was no legal basis, no court order, no authorization. But there was Warren's signature as witness. I touched the line with one finger. Warren, I said. He looked up. Miles asked, Grandpa, did I do something wrong? That was his almost moment. I saw it happen. Warren's eyes filled. His mouth opened. He looked at Miles, then at Carol, then at the packet. His hand tightened around the envelope. For one heartbeat, I thought he was going to choose the child. Then Carol said, Warren, and he looked away. Let's just get through today, he murmured. I stopped waiting for him right there. Kira said, Mrs. Callahan, I can take Miles to the library with Mr. Pike until you decide how you'd like to proceed. Carol stepped forward. He's coming with us. No, I said. She turned to Kira. I'm his grandmother. Kira's voice stayed even. You are not listed as authorized to withdraw him. I'm on the pickup list. You were, I said. Carol looked at me. I said to Kira, please remove Carol and Warren Callahan from pickup and emergency contact permissions effective immediately. I'll confirm in writing before I leave the parking lot. Kira nodded once. Carol laughed. You're proving my point. I picked up the packet and took pictures of each page with my phone. Carol said, you cannot photograph school documents. End quote. End quote. Kira said, she can photograph documents regarding her own child that you presented under false authority. Carol's face changed. Just a little. Enough. Rosa arrived 5 minutes later wearing a red knit hat and the expression of a woman who had already decided whom she would believe. Miles ran to her. She hugged him, then looked at me over his head. Go, she said. I knelt in front of Miles. Miss Rosa is going to take you home. I'm going to handle this. Am I still at Oak Bend? Yes. Promise? I looked him in the eye. Promise. He handed me the blue lunchbox. It's still full. I'll put it in the fridge. No, he said. Can Miss Rosa? Rosa took it gently. I can. That hurt in a clean way. He wanted his lunchbox with the person who felt safe in that moment. I let him. Carol watched Rosa leave with Miles and said, this is exactly what I mean. You let strangers raise him. I didn't answer. I took the copies, got into my car, and sat there for maybe a full minute with both hands on the wheel. Then my phone buzzed. Rosa. He is safe. He ate 2 crackers in the car. Handle the papers. So I did. I drove home and opened my laptop at the kitchen table. The house was too quiet. Miles's cereal bowl was still in the sink. One of his mismatched gloves lay on the floor by the back door. The little normal things looked offended by what had happened. I scanned the school packet into the folder. I added the Bryn text. Then I opened my email. There was a new message from Carol. Subject: Family Education Reserve. She had copied me by mistake or arrogance. To this day, I am not sure which. The email was to a general contact at Mariposa Trust and Savings. It read, as discussed by phone, our family is requesting temporary transfer of Educational Trust Administration for minor beneficiary Miles Callahan due to current instability in the home. Father deployed, mother unable to manage decisions. Funds should be moved into Callahan Family Education Reserve pending family review. Warren and I can come in this week to execute. I read it once, then I printed it. That is something people in my profession still do when a document matters. Screenshots are useful. PDFs are useful. But paper makes a lie sit still. I pulled the fireproof box from the closet. Inside were Evan's passport copy, our marriage certificate, Miles's birth certificate, the trust binder, the deployment power of attorney, and Oscar's envelope, back page. This time, when I read the addendum, I understood it differently, not as family history, as a switch. Oscar had not written it because he disliked Carol. He had written it because he knew what people did when they believed grief, distance, illness, or fear had created an opening. I did not fully understand every institutional consequence yet. I knew enough to know what language mattered. Unauthorized distribution request, false representation of authority, attempted interference with trustee, minor beneficiary, preservation of records. I work for estate lawyers. I am not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be, but I know what gets forwarded upstairs. I know which phrases make a trust officer stop treating something like a family squabble and start treating it like a fiduciary problem. I wrote one email. Not emotional. Not long. Dear Miss Holt, I am the sole trustee of the Miles Oscar Callahan Education Trust administered through Mariposa Trust and Savings. Attached, please find the current certificate of trust, my government identification, the deployment power of attorney for Evan Callahan. The school withdrawal packet presented this morning by Carol and Warren Callahan, and the email below from Carol Callahan requesting transfer of trust administration and movement of trust funds. Please treat this as formal notice of an unauthorized adverse claim and attempted interference with a minor beneficiary's trust. I request immediate preservation of all communications, call notes, distribution requests, and access attempts connected to this matter. Please confirm receipt. Sincerely, Tog, Clara M. Callahan. I attached the documents. Then I paused. The addendum was open beside me. My first instinct was to attach it too, to show everything, to make it clear, to prove I was right. 214-0, 214-9, 214-9, 214-9, 214-9, 214-9, 214-9. But Oscar had trusted Mariposa with a copy. If Sandra Holt was the right person, she would know it existed. If she didn't, I could provide mine. So I did not attach the back page. Not yet. I forwarded the email. For 12 minutes, nothing happened. I know because I watched the clock. At minute 13, my phone rang. Unknown number. This is Clara. Mrs. Callahan, this is Sandra Holt with Mariposa Trust and Savings. Her voice was calm, lower than I expected. Not warm exactly, but steady. I received your notice, she said. Not your complaint, not your concern, your notice. I sat down. Thank you for calling. I'm going to ask a few confirmation questions. Are you in a place where you can speak privately? Yes. She confirmed my name, address, Miles's date of birth, the trust name, and whether Evan was reachable. Then she asked, do Carol or Warren Callahan currently have any trustee authority over this trust? Anyone? No. Did you authorize either of them to request distribution, transfer, resignation, replacement, or review on your behalf? No. Did you authorize the school withdrawal? No. There was typing on her end. Then Sandra said, Mrs. Callahan, do you still have the sealed supplemental materials provided by Mr. Oscar Callahan? My throat tightened. Yes. Please keep them secured. Do not send them through general email yet. I'm moving this into internal review. I closed my eyes. She knew. Sandra continued. You may receive pressure to attend a family review meeting. If so, please notify me directly before responding. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because Carol had probably already scheduled it in her head. What happens now? I asked. Now, Sandra said. We make sure no one moves faster than the documents. That was not an aphorism. It was a procedure. Still, I wrote it down on a sticky note and stuck it to my laptop. At 3:12 that afternoon, Carol called. I let it go to voicemail. At 3:13, Warren called. At 3:14, Bryn texted. This is getting ridiculous. Mom is only trying to help. At 3:16, Carol left a voicemail. Her voice was tight. Not angry yet. Clara, you need to call me back. The bank is asking unnecessary questions because you've clearly made this adversarial. We have a meeting Thursday at 10. You will be there. Bring whatever papers make you feel better. But understand something. This family is not going to let you hide behind Evan's deployment. At 4:02, my doorbell camera recorded Carol standing on my porch. I was upstairs with the phone on silent, trying to get Evan's unit family liaison on the line. I did not see her live. The camera caught everything. Carol rang once, then leaned toward the door. Clara, she called. Open the door. She waited. Then she turned to Warren, who was standing on the walkway. She's going to make this harder than it needs to be, Carol said. Once she signs, She can complain all she wants, Warren said. Maybe we should slow down. Carol looked at him like he had disappointed her. Don't start. He lowered his head. She rang again. I didn't know about that video until Rosa texted me. Check your porch camera. Don't delete anything. Rosa had been watering her plants across the street and saw Carol leave. She did not ask what was on the recording. She just knew enough to tell me to keep it. That evening, Miles ate soup at Rosa's kitchen table. I joined them after sending the written update to the school. Rosa had washed the blue lunchbox and set it on the counter with the silver rocket zipper pull facing out. She had also warmed half his sandwich in a pan because he said cold turkey tasted sad now. He sat between us, dipping the sandwich into soup. Am I in trouble for crying at school? He asked. No, I said. Grandma looked mad. Grandma made choices that have consequences. He stirred his soup. Dad says consequences are not punishments if you pick the thing. Rosa looked at me over his head. That sounds like your dad, I said. Miles nodded. Can I call him? I'm trying to get a message through. Will he be mad? At you? Never. At Grandma? I did not answer right away. Finally, I said, I think Dad will be protective. Miles seemed satisfied with that. Rosa put a muffin beside his bowl. Eat. He did. That small act did more for me than every speech Carol had ever made about family. At 9 that night, Evan called. The connection was bad, but I told him everything. Not every detail, not every document, but enough. The school, the withdrawal packet, the trust email, the meeting. His face went still on the screen. She called you what? I swallowed. A widow in waiting. For a moment, all I could hear was the bad connection popping. Then Evan said, very quietly, put me on speaker. I did. Clara, listen to me. My mother has no authority over Miles. My father has no authority over Miles. Bryn has no authority over Miles. You do. You and me. And while I'm gone, you have every paper we signed for exactly this reason. I know. No, he said. I need you to hear me say it. Do not protect my feelings from my family's behavior. That sentence loosened something in my chest. I didn't want to worry you. I'm worried because they did it, not because you told me. Miles came into the kitchen in dinosaur pajamas. I know the instruction says not to use dinosaur, but in this story I'll change that memory now. He came in wearing rocket pajamas, rubbing one eye, and climbed into my lap when he saw Evan on the screen. Dad, he said. Grandma tried to switch me. Evan closed his eyes for half a second. When he opened them, he smiled at Miles with effort. Buddy, you are not a library book. Nobody switches you. Miles laughed a little. Evan said, Mom's got you. This time, I let the sentence stand. The next day, Wednesday, Carol started building her story. By 8 in the morning, she had texted 3 members of the family that I was spiraling under deployment pressure. By 9, Bryn had posted something vague online about watching a parent weaponize a child against loving grandparents. By 10, Warren had emailed me a scanned letter, unsigned by any lawyer, stating that Carol and he were requesting a temporary cooperative family trust review. At 10:30, Sandra Holt called again. I understand Mrs. Callahan has requested a meeting tomorrow, she said. She informed me. Do you intend to attend? Should I? Sandra paused. I can't advise you legally. I can tell you the institution has scheduled the meeting because Mrs. Callahan represented that all interested family parties would be present and that you had agreed to discuss transfer of trustee duties. I did not agree to that. I understand. What happens if I don't go? We proceed with internal review. However, if you choose to attend, I will chair the meeting, and it will be documented. Documented. There it was. Carol had created the room because she thought rooms worked for her. Public places, family tables, school offices, bank conference rooms. She liked witnesses when she controlled the story. I said, I'll attend. Bring identification, Sandra said. Bring your copy of the supplemental materials in a sealed envelope. Do not provide copies to anyone else. Okay. And Mrs. Callahan? Yes? If anyone pressures you to sign anything before the meeting, decline. I almost smiled. That part I know how to do. After I hung up, I called Bellwether and Crane and told my supervising attorney, Marla, that I needed a personal day. I did not ask her for legal advice. I knew better. But when she heard my voice, she said, "Is this family or documents?" "Both." "Then take 2 days." I tried to argue. She said, "Clara, you have covered 3 emergencies for this office without being asked. Take the time." Useful again, yes, but this time someone gave something back. I spent Wednesday gathering the kind of things people dismiss until they need them. Certified copy of the trust certificate, Evan's deployment power of attorney, Miles's birth certificate, school authorization records, screenshots, voicemails, Carol's email, the porch camera clip saved to a drive, my government ID, the sealed addendum in Oscar's envelope, CA2. I printed everything and placed it in a gray accordion file with labeled tabs: School, Trust, Evan, Carol Communications, Oscar, Miles. The last tab made me pause. Most of the documents were about adults behaving badly, but the reason for all of it was an 8-year-old boy who wanted to finish his science fair project and stay in the classroom where his paper snowflake hung on the bulletin board. At 3, I picked Miles up from Oak Bend myself. Mr. Pike walked him out. He was in his early 40s, tall, with chalk on one sleeve and the worn patience of a teacher who had seen too much adult nonsense arrive in children's backpacks. "Miles had a good day," he said. Miles nodded. "Mr. Pike let me feed the class fish." Mr. Pike smiled. "High responsibility." Then his expression shifted. "Mrs. Callahan, Miss Nasser," updated his file. "I'll be watching the pickup line personally this week." "Thank you." He looked at Miles, then back at me. Kids should not have to wonder where they're being taken during math. It was a plain sentence. That's why it landed. Carol would have called it meddling. I called it decency. That evening, Warren came by alone. I saw him through the front window, standing on the porch with his hands in his coat pockets. For one moment, I almost did not answer. But Miles was at Rosa's doing homework, and I wanted to know whether Warren was capable of saying one true thing without Carol beside him. I opened the door, but left the chain on. He looked older than he had on Tuesday. "Clara," he said. "Warren, I just want to talk. You can talk from there." He looked at the chain. A flash of hurt crossed his face, as if the chain were the betrayal. "I didn't like how yesterday went," he said. "No? No." "Your mother-in-law got emotional." I waited. He rubbed his forehead. "Carol is worried. She lied on a school form. She thinks Miles needs consistency. She tried to remove him from his school without telling me." His mouth opened, closed. Then he said, "Maybe you could come tomorrow and just listen. Let her feel heard. It would calm everything down." Anyone. There it was, the family translation of peace. Let Carol win enough to stop making noise. "Warren," I said, "you signed the witness line." He looked away. "Why? She told me you had agreed in principle. Did you ask me?" I thought, "You thought what?" He looked at me then, and for 1 second, I saw the almost moment from the school office again. The shame, the awareness, the chance. "I thought it would be easier," he said. I nodded. That answer was honest enough to hurt more. "Easier for whom?" He did not respond. From across the street, Rosa's porch light clicked on. Warren noticed it. "I don't want this family torn apart," he said. "You should have thought about that before you signed a lie about my ability to mother my son." His face tightened. "That is not fair." "No," I said. "It is accurate." He sighed, frustrated now. "You always have to make it about wording." I almost laughed. Wording had been holding his life together for decades. Deeds, titles, beneficiaries, medical directives, authorizations, signatures. He just did not respect wording when it protected me. "I'll see you tomorrow," I said. "Clara, don't go in there trying to embarrass Carol." "I'm not trying to embarrass anyone." "Good. I'm bringing the documents." His face changed, just for a second. Then he stepped back. That was when I knew he had not come to apologize. He had come to measure what I knew Cation. Thursday morning, I dressed carefully, not formally enough to look like I was performing. Not casually enough to look like I could be dismissed. Black slacks, cream blouse, Navy coat, small earrings, hair pulled back, wedding ring on. Miles watched me from the kitchen table while eating toast. "Are you going to Grandma's meeting?" "Yes. Do I have to go?" "No." "Good." Rosa was taking him to school. She arrived at 7:40 with her travel mug and a paper bag. "I brought muffins," she said. Miles brightened. "The cinnamon ones? Do I look like an amateur?" He grinned. The blue lunchbox was on the counter. Rosa had tucked a napkin inside and written, "You belong at your desk. R." Miles read it and looked embarrassed in the way children do when kindness finds them too directly. He zipped the lunchbox. The silver rocket pull clicked against the counter. I kissed his head. "I'll pick you up after school." "Promise?" "Promise." At 9:50, I parked outside Mariposa Trust and Savings. The building sat on the corner of Ridgeway and 3rd, all brick columns and reflective glass. Oscar had banked there for 40 years. Carol had mentioned that fact often, usually when she wanted a restaurant reservation, a committee position, or a person behind a desk to understand she was not ordinary. I sat in the car for a moment with the gray accordion file on the passenger seat. My phone buzzed. "Evan, I'm awake. No matter what happens, do not sign anything unless your lawyer reviews it. I love you. Tell Miles. I expect a full fish feeding report." Then another message. "Rosa." He walked in with Mr. Pike. "Lunchbox made it. Go be boring and dangerous." That one made me smile. Inside the bank, the lobby was quiet in the padded way of places where people discuss money without wanting to hear themselves doing it. There were leather chairs, a coffee station, and framed photographs of local landmarks. Behind the reception desk, a woman in a gray blazer asked my name, Clara Callahan, meeting with Sandra Holt. Her expression flickered. Not judgment, recognition. One moment, Carol was already there. Of course she was. She sat near the window, with Warren on one side and Bryn on the other. Bryn wore a white coat and sunglasses pushed into her hair, even though it was February. Uncle Reed stood near the coffee station looking deeply uncomfortable. I had not expected Reed. He was Warren's younger brother, Oscar's other son. He had lived 2 towns away for years, close enough to attend holidays, distant enough to avoid most fights. He was the type of man who washed dishes at family gatherings, but disappeared before decisions were made. Carol saw me and smiled. "There you are," she said, loudly enough for the receptionist to hear. "You came." I sat in the chair across from them, the accordion file on my lap. Bryn glanced at it. "Nice binder." "Thank you." She rolled her eyes. Carol leaned forward. "Clara, before we go in there, I want to say something." I looked at her. "We all know yesterday got heated. I'm willing to move forward if you can be reasonable." Warren nodded faintly. I said, "What does reasonable mean?" Carol's smile held. "It means understanding that you're not alone, and that the family has a right to protect its own." "Protect Miles from what?" "Instability." "What instability?" She sighed. "This is exactly why we need a neutral party." The receptionist stood. "Mrs. Holt is ready." Conference room 3 had glass walls on 2 sides and a long walnut table. A carafe of water sat in the center with 6 glasses nobody touched. Sandra Holt stood at the far end with a junior associate beside her. Sandra was in her late 50s, maybe early 60s, with silver-streaked dark hair cut at her chin and glasses on a chain around her neck. She did not look like someone about to ruin Carol's week. That was her advantage. "Mrs. Callahan," she said. Both Carol and I looked up. Sandra turned to me. "Clara Callahan." Carol's smile thinned. I stood. "Yes." Sandra extended her hand. "Thank you for coming." Then she turned to the others. "Carol Callahan." "Warren Callahan." "Bryn Voss." "Reed Callahan." Carol said, "Reed is here as Oscar's son." Sandra nodded. "I understand." Reed looked like he wished nobody did. We sat. I placed the accordion file on the table but did not open it. Dulu open. Sandra opened a slim folder. "This meeting is being documented internally. No recording is permitted without consent of all parties. I will ask each person to speak one at a time." Carol laughed lightly. "That sounds very formal." "It is," Sandra said. Carol stopped laughing. Sandra looked at me. "Clara, have you authorized any transfer of trustee duties related to the Miles Oscar Callahan Education Trust?" "No. Have you authorized any distribution of funds to a Callahan Family Education Reserve? No. Have you authorized Carol or Warren Callahan to act on your behalf regarding Miles Callahan's enrollment at Oak Bend Academy? No. Carol shifted. This is misleading. We never claimed she signed anything. Sandra looked at Carol. You'll have an opportunity to clarify. Carol sat back. For the first 20 minutes, she performed concern. She spoke about deployment, stress, about how military spouses often don't realize they're overwhelmed, about Miles needing a broader family net, about Oscar's wishes, which apparently sounded exactly like Carol's preferences. She said I had been isolating. I had declined 2 Sunday dinners. She said I had delegated mothering to a neighbor. Rosa had made soup and stood at a bus stop. She said I had become possessive about trust paperwork. I had refused to give her copies of documents she had no right to possess. Bryn jumped in when Carol mentioned fairness. I just think, Bryn said, it's strange that Grandpa would lock up that much money for one child when there are 3 great-grandchildren. I looked at her. She avoided my eyes. Sandra wrote something down. Are you asserting a claim on behalf of your children? Bryn flushed. No, I'm saying as family, we should discuss it. Discuss what? Specifically, the education resources. The trust beneficiary is Miles Callahan. Bryn's mouth tightened. That's what the paper says. Sandra looked up. That is what governs. Carol placed a hand on Bryn's arm. No one is taking anything. We're simply putting adults in charge. The junior associate stopped writing for half a second. I saw it. Carol did not. Warren sat with both hands folded on the table. He looked miserable. I could almost feel the old pull in myself, the urge to make his misery easier, to soften my face, to signal that I understood he was caught in the middle. But he was not caught. He had walked there. Sandra turned to him. Mr. Callahan, did you sign the Oak Bend Academy withdrawal packet as a witness? Warren cleared his throat. I signed where my wife indicated. That was not my question. The room changed temperature. He looked at Carol. She gave the smallest nod. Yes, he said. I signed it. Did you personally witness Clara Callahan authorize the withdrawal? No. Did you speak with Clara Callahan before signing? No. Why did you sign? He shifted. I believed my wife had handled the family discussion. And, Sandra wrote again. Carol said, this is becoming punitive. Sandra did not look up. It is becoming clear. I kept my hands folded in my lap. That was when Kira Nasser entered. Carol's head snapped toward the door. Kira wore a dark green cardigan and carried a folder with the Oak Bend logo. She looked nervous but steady. Sandra said, Miss Nasser, thank you for joining us. Carol's voice sharpened. Why is the school here? Sandra said, because the withdrawal packet is part of the record you asked us to review. Carol turned to me. You brought the school into a private family matter? I did not answer. Kira sat near Sandra. She placed the folder on the table, aligned it carefully, and folded her hands. Sandra said, Miss Nasser, did Carol or Warren Callahan present themselves as authorized to withdraw Miles Callahan from Oak Bend Academy? Kira glanced at me, then at Sandra. Yes, Carol said. We presented ourselves as grandparents. Kira said, You also stated that Mrs. Clara Callahan was unavailable to make educational decisions and had verbally agreed to family oversight. I said she was under stress. You wrote emotionally unavailable, Kira said. Carol's face flushed. Sandra slid a copy of the packet forward. This is your handwriting? Carol did not touch it. Yes. And this is Warren Callahan's signature as witness? Warren whispered, Yes. Sandra nodded once. Then Carol made her mistake. She leaned forward, palms on the table, voice low and controlled. Let's stop pretending. Clara was never meant to control Callahan money. Oscar only put her name there because Evan was sentimental and because Clara was convenient. She is a soldier's wife whose husband is gone. She is alone. She is frightened. And yes, I said it at the school because everyone was thinking it. A widow in waiting cannot be trusted with a child's future. Nobody moved. The words sat there. This time, there were no paper snowflakes behind her. No crying child. No school copier. Just glass walls, a walnut table, a trust officer, and Carol putting her motive into the room. Sandra removed her glasses. Mrs. Callahan, she said, Are you stating that you requested transfer of trust assets because you believe Clara Callahan's trustee authority is invalid? Carol lifted her chin. I'm stating she is not fit to manage it. Sandra looked at Warren. Do you agree with that statement? Warren closed his eyes. I watched him. This was his last almost moment. He could have said no. He could have said, Carol went too far. He could have said Clara is Miles's mother and I signed something I should not have signed. Instead, he opened his eyes and said, We're trying to protect our grandson. I felt something inside me go very still. Sandra put her glasses back on. That answer completes our review, she said. Carol blinked. What does that mean? Sandra opened the folder in front of her and removed 3 documents. She placed the first one on the table. The Certificate of Trust for the Miles Oscar Callahan Education Trust names Clara May Callahan as sole trustee. She placed the second document beside it. The distribution request submitted by Carol Callahan identifies Carol Callahan as family financial custodian. No such role exists under this trust. Carol's lips parted. Sandra placed the third document down. It was not my copy. It was Mariposa's. Oscar's addendum, the back page. My breath. Caught. Anyway. Carol stared at it with a face I had never seen on her before. Not fear yet. Recognition, trying to outrun memory. Sandra read aloud. Any person who misrepresents authority, coerces the trustee, or attempts to divert funds from the beneficiary shall be removed from all authorized roles connected to the beneficiary, settler, or related custodial accounts administered by this institution. The room went silent. Sandra looked at Carol. Your request triggered the clause. Carol reached for the paper. Sandra moved it back. This is an institutional record now. Warren's face had gone gray. Bryn whispered, What clause? Uncle Reed sat back in his chair and covered his mouth with one hand. Carol looked at him. Did you know about this? Reed did not answer quickly. That silence answered first. Carol's voice rose. Reed. He dropped his hand. Dad added it after the Heritage Fund issue. Warren looked at him sharply. I remembered the name from an old family argument, something about a charitable account, and Carol being offended that Oscar had removed her as a contact. Carol said, That had nothing to do with this. Reed's voice was quiet. It had everything to do with this. He said if you ever got near a child's money, there had to be a locked door. Carol looked like he had slapped her. Sandra continued, calm as stone. Upon receiving Clara Callahan's notice, we reviewed the trust file, the supplemental addendum, the call notes from Mrs. Carol Callahan's prior contacts with our office, the distribution request, and the school documentation. Based on that review, Mariposa Trust and Savings has rejected the requested transfer, frozen all non-trustee access inquiries, and initiated removal of Carol and Warren Callahan from authorized contact, convenience signer, backup communication, and trusted contact roles connected to accounts administered here for Oscar Callahan's estate plan, Miles Callahan's custodial interests, and related family education accounts. Bryn sat up. Wait, what family education accounts? Carol shot her a look. Sandra noticed. So did I. Bryn's face changed as she realized she had said too much. Sandra said, Miss Voss, do you have knowledge of intended distributions from any account related to Miles Callahan's trust? No, but it came too fast. I opened my folder for the first time. Not dramatically, just enough to remove one printed screenshot. I slid it to Sandra, not to Bryn. Bryn saw it anyway. Mom said once Evan is gone, the trust can be shifted before spring tuition. Don't let Clara make it emotional. Her mouth opened. Carol said, That was a misunderstanding. Sandra read it without expression. This will be added to the file. Bryn turned on her mother. You said it would be temporary. There it was. Not only control, not only pride, need. Carol had promised money that was never hers. The silence after that was different. It had edges. Kira Nassar looked down at the table. Warren stared at his hands. Reed looked 10 years older. Carol's cheeks were red, but her voice, when it came, tried for dignity. This family has always helped each other. I finally spoke. Miles is 8. Carol turned to me. Don't you dare imply I would hurt him. You pulled him out of class and told people I was emotionally unavailable. For his good. You wrote it on a form. For his good. You requested his trust money be moved to an account you controlled. Carol's jaw tightened. Because someone had to be practical. Sandra said, Mrs. Callahan, no funds will be moved. Carol ignored her. Clara, you are making a terrible mistake. You're letting strangers turn you against family. I looked at Sandra, then Kira, then Reed, then the empty chair beside the door, where Miles was not sitting because Rosa had taken him to school. No, I said. You brought strangers' receipts. Warren flinched. Carol's mask cracked then. Just for a moment, she looked furious enough to forget the glass walls. You think this makes you powerful? She said. You think because an old man signed some paper you get to shut us out? I did not answer. Sandra did. Oscar Callahan was the settler. Clara Callahan is the trustee. Miles Callahan is the beneficiary. That is not power. That is the structure. Carol looked at Sandra with pure dislike. My husband has banked here for 40 years, Sandra said. Your husband is being removed from the relevant account rolls because he signed a false witness statement regarding a minor beneficiary. Warren's head came up. Removed from what exactly? Sandra turned a page. The scholarship reserve, the custodial communication access attached to Miles Callahan's educational profile, the backup bill pay notification roll Evan Callahan added before deployment, and 2 estate-related accounts where Oscar's addendum gives this institution discretion following attempted interference. Warren looked at me as if I had done it. I almost said, I didn't write the addendum, but he knew that. That was why his face looked the way it did. Carol's voice changed next, softer, warmer, false, in a new direction. Clara, she said. Sweetheart, this has gone too far. I had never been sweetheart to her, unless there was an audience. We were scared, she said. Evan is gone. You're alone. Miles is precious to us. Maybe I used the wrong words, but everything I did came from love. Ever. Kira's eyes flicked toward me. Rosa had warned me about this without knowing the details. People like Carol count on exhausted women deleting things. People like Carol also count on changing the lighting after the scene is over. Sandra said, the school will make its own determinations regarding access. Kira opened her folder. Oak Bend has voided the attempted withdrawal. Carol and Warren Callahan have been removed from pickup, emergency contact, and volunteer access for Miles Callahan. Because false statements were presented in our administrative office, the head of school has also suspended Mrs. Carol Callahan's participation on the Spring Benefit Committee pending review. Carol stared at Kira. You cannot be serious. Kira's hands shook slightly, but her voice did not. I am, Bryn whispered. Mom? The Benefit Committee? Of all the things to care about, that one found her first. Carol looked around the room like someone might restore the old order if she found the right face. Warren said, Clara, we can fix this privately. I looked at him. He was not asking to fix what he had done. He was asking me to help hide what it cost. No, I said. Bryn leaned forward, panic rising. My kid's tuition is due next month. Mom said there was a way to borrow against family education funds, and we would pay it back. I looked at her for a long second. Bryn, I said. Your children's tuition is not Miles's emergency. She recoiled like I had been cruel. Maybe to her I had. Carol touched Bryn's arm again, but Bryn pulled away. That was the first honest family consequence I saw. Not the account removals, not the school flag, but Bryn, realizing her mother had used her need as part of the lie and still expected loyalty afterward. Sandra closed the folder. Clara, we will send written confirmation by secure portal. Until then, no distribution request will be processed without direct trustee verification. We recommend you consult independent counsel regarding any further harassment or false statements. I will. Carol stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. This is not over. Sandra looked up. From the institution's perspective, this matter has been decided. That was the sentence Carol could not fight, because there was no emotion in it, no insult, no opening, just decided. In the lobby, Rosa was waiting. I had not asked her to come. She was supposed to be at home after dropping Miles at school, but there she was in a gray sweater, holding a paper cup of coffee and Miles's blue lunchbox. My heart jumped. Is Miles okay? He forgot it in my car, she said. Mr. Pike called before lunch. I took it from her. The silver rocket zipper pull was warm from her hand. Behind me, Carol came out of the conference room with Warren and Bryn. Her face shifted when she saw Rosa. Of course it did. Rosa was proof that someone had shown up without wanting a signature. Carol said, "This is family business." Rosa looked at her over the rim of her coffee. "Then, you should have behaved like family." Carol's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Warren stopped beside me. "Clara," he said quietly, "I'm sorry this became so public. Not I'm sorry I signed. Not I'm sorry Miles was scared. Not I'm sorry we lied." I looked at him, and I felt no satisfaction, only the tiredness that comes when someone shows you the limit of who they are and expects you to call it an accident. "You made it public when you walked into his school," I said. He looked down. Carol's voice sharpened again. "You're going to regret cutting us off from our grandson." I held Miles's lunchbox against my coat. "I'm not cutting you off from him," I said. "Your choices did." She stepped closer. "We're still family. Not around my son's records." Her face twisted. That was not my final line to her. Not yet. The 3 days people talk about were not magical. They were administrative. That may sound less satisfying, but to me it was the most satisfying part of all. Thursday afternoon, Sandra sent formal confirmation through the secure portal. Carol's request was denied. The trust was restricted to direct trustee verification only. Any future contact from Carol, Warren, or Bryn regarding Miles's trust would be logged but not acted upon. Related account roles were under removal review. Friday morning, Oak Bend sent written confirmation of the access changes. Carol and Warren were removed from pickup permissions. Bryn had never been on them, but Kira flagged her anyway after I requested no release to extended family without my direct written consent. Friday afternoon, Mariposa sent the completed removal notices. Carol and Warren had been stripped from every account role they had used to hover near Miles's money and Oscar's related family funds. Not ownership they truly held, not money that belonged to them, access, influence, backup authority, the soft places where controlling people like to put their fingers and later claim they were only helping. By Saturday, Carol knew. So did Warren. So did Bryn, because she sent me 17 texts between 10:04 and 10:32 that morning. Most of them were angry. One said, "You have no idea what you've done to this family." I thought about answering, "I know exactly what you tried to do to my son." I did not. I took screenshots and saved them in the folder. At noon, Carol came to the house. This time, Warren was not with her. I saw her through the peephole holding a white bakery box from the pastry shop she used when she wanted an apology to look expensive. I opened the door but did not invite her in. She looked smaller without the conference room table, still polished, still in control of her coat and hair and face, but smaller. "I brought Miles cinnamon rolls," she said. "He's at Rosa's." Her mouth tightened. "Of course he is." I waited. She took a breath. "Clara, we need to reset." "No." She blinked. "No? No. You haven't even heard me." "I heard you at the school. I heard you at the bank. I heard your voicemail on my porch. Her eyes flickered. "Good. People say things under stress," she said. "You wrote them on forms, too." Her fingers tightened around the bakery box string. "I love my grandson. I believe you love the version of him that gives you access. That is a hateful thing to say. Maybe." She looked past me into the house. Evan's boots were still by the back door. Miles's science fair board leaned against the dining room wall. The blue lunchbox sat on the counter, drying after I washed it. Carol saw it and looked away. For once, I think she understood that she had scared him. Not enough to take responsibility, enough to dislike the evidence. "I made a mistake," she said. I said nothing. A grandmother should not be punished forever for one mistake. "One?" Her lips pressed together. I opened the gray accordion file I had placed on the entry table before answering the door. I removed one sheet, a written boundary I had drafted with help from Marla, my supervising attorney, who had told me to keep it short. I handed it to Carol. She looked at it like paper had become a personal enemy. "What is this?" Written notice. No unsupervised contact with Miles. No school contact. No trust contact. No coming to the house without being invited. Communication in writing only for now. Her eyes filled then. I wish I could say I felt nothing. I didn't. I remembered the woman who brought a huge balloon to the hospital, the woman who corrected my pie crust at Thanksgiving, the woman who taught Miles to plant tulip bulbs and then told everyone he had inherited her green thumb. People are rarely only one thing, which is why leaving them behind can hurt even when it is necessary. "Clara," she whispered, "don't do this." There was the fake love, the soft voice, the wounded grandmother, the plea that skipped over the wound she made. I thought of Miles in the school chair holding his lunchbox. "I'm not doing this to you," I said. "I'm doing this for him." She read the first lines of the notice. Her face hardened again. "This is Evan's child too." "Yes, he won't accept this. He already has." That landed. She looked at me then with something close to hatred, because Evan's support had always been the piece she expected to retrieve later. "He's deployed," she said. "He's still his father, and you're enjoying this." "No, you are. You finally get to be in charge." I almost smiled, but not because she was funny, because even then she thought authority was the same thing as domination. "No, Carol," I said. "I finally stopped making your comfort my job." That was one of the few sentences in my life that felt like it had been waiting for me. She shoved the boundary letter into her purse. What am I supposed to tell people? I looked at the bakery box in her hands. Something closer to the truth than last time. She left the cinnamon rolls on the porch. I threw them away. Not dramatically, not with rage. I just picked up the box with 2 fingers, walked it to the outside bin, and closed the lid. Miles never saw them. That evening, Evan called longer than usual. I told him about the bank notices, the school flag, Carol's visit, and the boundary letter. Miles showed him the fish food cup Mr. Pike had let him label with a sticker. Evan laughed, then got quiet after Miles went to bed. "I'm sorry," he said. "You didn't do this. I know, but they're mine. They're adults." He rubbed his face with both hands. The video froze, then caught up. My dad emailed me. What did he say? "That mom got carried away, and you used legal tricks to humiliate them." I leaned back in the chair. "What did you say?" "I said Dad signed a false school form and should thank God you didn't call a lawyer before the bank." I closed my eyes. "And then," Evan added, "I told him not to contact you unless it's in writing." I cried then, quietly, annoyingly. The kind of crying where you keep wiping your face because you still have dishes to do. Evan stayed on the call until I stopped. "I hate that I'm not there," he said. "I hate it too. But Clara? Yeah, you were." That sentence carried me through the next week. The consequences did not fix everything. They never do. Miles still asked, twice, whether Grandma could change his school if she was mad enough. I told him no each time. Then I showed him, in simple terms, the school email that said only Mom and Dad could change enrollment. He read the first line slowly, lips moving. "Can I keep a copy?" he asked. That hurt. "Yes," I said. He folded it and put it in the front pocket of his blue lunchbox beside Evan's note. The lunchbox became heavier after that, not because of what was inside it, but because of what he needed it to carry. Mr. Pike checked in every afternoon for 2 weeks. Not dramatically. Usually just, "Good day today," or "He laughed at lunch," or "He asked if the fish can get bored." Kira Nasser sent me the updated access sheet with Carol and Warren removed. Rosa walked with us to the bus stop on mornings when I looked like I had not slept. And Carol went quiet. Not peacefully. Strategically. I heard from other people that she had stepped down from the spring benefit committee to focus on family. I heard Bryn had pulled her twins from the St. Anselm waitlist after missing a tuition deadline. I heard Warren had stopped going to the Friday breakfast group for a while because someone asked too many questions about the bank. I did not chase any of it. That was new for me. The old Clara would have tried to manage the aftermath. She would have called Warren to make sure he was okay. She would have sent a neutral family update. She would have explained to Bryn that she did not want the twins hurt. She would have made herself smaller so everyone else could exit with dignity. But Miles's paper snowflake was still on the bulletin board. Evan was still deployed, and I was tired of treating other people's embarrassment like an emergency. 2 weeks later, Carol waited for me outside Oak Bend. That was her last attempt. It was a bright morning, cold enough that the grass glittered. I had parked near the side entrance because Miles had science fair materials in the trunk. He carried the display board. I carried the model volcano. He had insisted was not a volcano, because it was a controlled chemical reaction display. Rosa carried the blue lunchbox because Miles had forgotten he only had 2 hands. Carol stood near the front steps in a gray wool coat. Miles saw her first. His body changed, not dramatically. He just moved closer to me. That was enough. I handed the volcano to Rosa. Take him inside? Rosa looked at Carol. Gladly, Miles whispered. Are you coming? In 1 minute. He hesitated. Carol's face softened. Miles, sweetheart. He stepped behind Rosa. Rosa said, School starts in 6 minutes. Then she walked him inside. Carol watched them go. Her eyes were wet. For a second, I saw the grandmother she might have been, if control had not mattered more than love. Then she turned to me. You've poisoned him. No, I said. You scared him. Her mouth trembled. I just wanted to see him. You chose the school because you knew it would pressure me. She looked toward the doors. People are staring. They are. Can we talk somewhere private? I thought of the school office, the bank lobby, the conference room, the porch camera, all the places she had used as stages until the audience changed. No. Her eyes hardened. You cannot keep him from us forever. I can keep him safe today. Evan will come home eventually. Yes. And then we'll see. I nodded. We will. She took a step closer. You don't understand what it means to be a Callahan. I looked at her then, really looked. At the pearls, the coat, the hurt pride, the woman who had mistaken a last name for a deed. And I said the line I had not planned, the one that rose up from the school office. Oscar's back page, Evan's grainy face on a phone, and Miles clutching his lunchbox. I was never waiting to be widowed, Carol. I was standing where Oscar put me between you and my son. She went still, not because I was loud, because I wasn't. The bell rang inside the school. Children's voices rose and faded behind the glass doors. Carol looked away first. She walked to her car without another word. That was the last time she came to Oak Bend. When Evan came home months later, thinner and tired and carrying a duffel that smelled like dust and metal, Miles ran into him so hard they both almost fell. Carol was not at the welcome home. That was Evan's choice. Warren sent one email the week before asking whether the family could begin healing properly. Evan responded with one sentence. Healing starts with responsibility, not access. Carol sent nothing. At home, Evan stood in the kitchen and looked at the blue lunchbox drying on the rack. He picked it up by the silver rocket pole. So this is the famous lunchbox, he said. Miles said, It survived, Grandma. Evan's face changed. I said, Miles, what? It did. Evan set the lunchbox down carefully. Yeah, he said. It did. That night, after Miles fell asleep, Evan and I opened the fireproof box together. I showed him Oscar's addendum, the boundary letter, Sandra's confirmation, and the school access sheet. He read every page. When he finished, he put both hands flat on the table the way I had in the school office. My grandfather knew, he said. Yes, I should have known too. You knew enough to sign the deployment papers with me. He looked at me. That's not the same as protecting you from them. No, I said, but I'm not asking you to rewrite the past. I'm asking you not to hand them the pen again. He nodded. We changed the locks the next day. Not because Carol had a key anymore, because I wanted the sound of the new lock turning. I wanted Miles to hear it too. We made a new emergency list for the fridge. Mom, Dad, Rosa, Mr. Pike through school. Unit, family liaison. Marla from work, only for legal emergencies, though she laughed when I told her and said, Please don't make me fourth-string grandma. Rosa came over for dinner the following Sunday. Not a Callahan dinner, no seating politics, no one asking who brought what, or why the rolls were store-bought. Just soup, bread, salad, and Miles explaining his controlled chemical reaction display to anyone who would listen. At one point, Rosa noticed the trust binder on the counter. You putting that away? She asked. Yes. Good. That's it? She shrugged. Paper did its job. Let the boy eat. So I put it in the fireproof box. The blue lunchbox sat by the door for Monday morning. Inside, I packed grapes, crackers, a turkey sandwich cut diagonally, and a muffin from Rosa, wrapped in a napkin. Miles tucked Evan's old note back into the front pocket. Then he added the folded school access confirmation, worn soft from being opened and closed. "You still need that?" I asked. "For now," he said. So I zipped it carefully. By spring, he stopped carrying the school email. By summer, the lunchbox had a dent on one corner and smelled faintly like apples, no matter how often I washed it. By fall, Miles picked a new backpack, but kept the silver rocket pull. Evan moved it from the lunchbox zipper to the backpack zipper with a pair of pliers at the kitchen table, while Miles watched like it was surgery. That is how life changed. Not all at once, not like a movie where the villain disappears and the house fills with sunlight. It changed through updated forms, quiet mornings, blocked numbers, secure portals, a neighbor with muffins, a teacher who remembered a child's fear without making him relive it, a husband who came home and did not ask me to smooth things over, a boy who walked into school without looking over his shoulder. Carol tried twice more through email. The first message was formal and cold, accusing me of alienation. I forwarded it to Evan and saved it. The second came on Miles's birthday. It said, "Please tell him his grandmother loves him." I did tell him, not because she deserved it, because he deserved not to have adults turn love into a secret weapon. He thought for a long time and said, "Can I love her from here?" I said yes. He nodded and went back to assembling a model rocket with Evan. That was enough. I don't know what Carol tells people now. I imagine the story changes depending on the room. Maybe I'm controlling. Maybe deployment broke me. Maybe the bank overreacted. Maybe Oscar was old and confused when he signed the back page. Maybe Carol was only trying to help. I no longer attend hearings in the court of Carol's opinion. The trust is still there, locked tight. Miles does not know the full amount. He knows his great-grandfather left something for school, and that Mom and Dad are responsible for protecting it. Someday, when he is older, I will explain more. I will show him the documents, not to make him hate anyone, to teach him that love and access are not the same thing. For now, he knows he stayed at Oak Bend. He knows his teacher kept the fish alive. He knows Rosa makes better cinnamon muffins than the bakery Carol used. He knows his father came home. He knows that when adults tried to move him without asking his parents, the answer was no. That is enough childhood truth for now. As for me, I still work at Bellwether and Crane. I still read trust documents. I still find missing signatures and mismatched dates. Sometimes when a client says, "It's just paperwork," I have to stop myself from answering too quickly. Because it is never just paperwork when someone vulnerable is standing behind it. Sometimes it is a child in a school office. Sometimes it is a tired spouse with a deployed husband. Sometimes it is an old man's final way of saying, "I saw who you were when everyone else called it family." Oscar gave me the back page, but he did not give me my spine. I had it. I had just been using it to carry everyone else. That may be the hardest part to admit. They did not underestimate me because I was weak. They underestimated me because I had been kind, in ways they mistook for permission. The morning after Evan moved the rocket pull to Miles's backpack, I stood at the door and watched my son walk down the sidewalk between his father and Rosa. Evan carried his coffee. Rosa carried hers. Miles bounced the backpack once to make the rocket charm click. At the corner, he turned and waved. I waved back. For the first time in months, my hand did not shake. That's my story. A blue lunchbox, a cruel phrase spoken in a school office, and a silver rocket pull on a backpack headed toward a safer life. If someone in your life only values you when you are useful, take this as your sign to look closely at what they reach for when you finally say no. Protect your peace. Protect your children. Protect the papers that tell the truth when people try to rewrite it. And if this story reminded you of someone who stayed calm while everyone underestimated them, leave a comment for them. They may need to hear that quiet strength still counts.